Also want to show you guys two techniques, two very simple techniques, probably the only techniques that you're ever going to need to use in watercolors. So the first technique is wet on dry, and that's what you guys have done already. So wet on dry is when you have just a bit of paint and you're painting onto a dry surface. So you can see you've kind of got sharper lines, right? If you're painting like a tree, some branches of a tree or something like that, branches of a tree, you know, things like that, you can get these, when the paper is dry, when you're painting on it, you can get sharper sort of shapes. It's normally not so loud around here. I'm out of here. So that's kind of like an example. What you've done here in terms of just painting on that white bit of paper, you know, you get these sharp edges, defined edges on the areas that you paint. Now, the next technique is wet and wet. So basically what that is where you have like a section, let's say here, I'm just going to put in some paint. Okay, just wet like a section of the paper down. Okay, you can flip over that bit of paper if you want. Just paint on the back just to practice this. So I've got this whole section here and it's wet. Okay, it's just wet. And then what I can do is I can pick up a bit of paint. Okay, just a bit of paint from my palette and drop it in there. Okay, this can be something like clouds or whatever. Usually I'm going to pick up a paint that's darker and maybe a bit more concentrated. Yeah? And then you can get this kind of, sort of soft effect. So notice the lines, the little brush strokes I have in here. See how they're kind of faded off on the edges? So it's different from, say, this sort of one here, this tree. Okay? Where you've got these sharper sort of shapes. Okay? So the reason why I wanted to go through those two techniques, so wet on dry and wet on wet, is because you use those techniques in different circumstances. So if you're painting clouds, normally I'll use something like a wet on wet technique like that. But if you're painting something that's sharper, maybe like a building or something like that, I'm going to make sure that there's some defined edges, especially with like man-made shapes, buildings, cars, all that kind of stuff. You know, they have like quite rigid, see, that could be a car or something like this. Wait, just try. It could be a car here, right? And then the windows, oops. So normally it's going to have a bit more of a refined type of look to it, rather than with clouds where you can sort of vary the shapes.